There is a reason why I can run 2 companies, still go to date night every week, still hang out with my kids, still go to the lake in the boat, still take a vacation, still do all my emails, still do all my PowerPoint presentations. There's a reason for that. Because when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone.
Get ready to be amazed. Get ready to be transformed. Get ready to believe it is possible. You're entering the growth zone on the Guts and Glory Show with your host, Louise Scott.
Hey guys, welcome to the Guts and Glory Show, a show dedicated to helping you learn just a little more so that you can be bigger and better than you were before. Today I have a special guest. Really excited to talk about this topic. I know a lot of you are probably interested in this. You know, we talk about consolidating businesses and how do you grow? Should you grow your own business by yourself or should you acquire a business? And we're going to be talking about closing the deal with Addison Adams, who is the attorney who closes deals. He's from California and sunny California. And he's going to be telling us a little bit about how to get that deal closed, how to get the money. How do we finance this thing? Like, we really need to find that out, and really excited to have Addison on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Looking forward to sharing some inside information with your listeners and having a good conversation.
Absolutely. So we started the show, for those of you guys who are listening and not watching, we started the show talking about, or pre-show, talking about the suit and tie. The Harvey Specter effect is in the house. Suits is in the house. And I promise you, he's going to deliver. He's going to deliver. So I'm really excited about that. But tell me a little bit about how you got into this area of law, because one of the things, as a lawyer myself, I've always thought that people just get into whatever practice they interned in. And I don't remember there being internships for closings or deals, making deals. So how did you get into this?
Well, I've always been interested in closing deals. And in law school, I did take classes on corporate law and securities law transactions. And it's just something that I've gravitated towards. I've tried a few other areas of law in my career early on. And I think that people have a different sort of mindset, personality, at least among the lawyer group. Something draws you. And the idea to me of meeting with business owners and entrepreneurs, I love talking to them. I love advising them because it takes guts to be an entrepreneur, to take those chances and to make those difficult decisions, to, put their money at risk, put their investors' money at risk. And so I respect that. And I'm here to help them to deploy their capitals wisely, to protect and build on a strong foundation. And so I think that's really the answer. And when you sign on the dotted line and the money gets wired to the account and everybody is basically high-fiving, that's a good day for me. That's a job well done. And I want to do it over and over.
I love that. I love that you say that you're drawn to something, because I do think that's true. You know, early on in my career, I did a couple different practice areas, and there were some practice areas that just absolutely did not appeal to me. You know, and I don't want to turn anybody off who may be listening and works in those areas, but I do think it draws you. I think it's somewhat of a calling, and only that calling is going to keep you, when the things are tough, when things get really hard. And I'm curious, like, what has been the hardest moment in building your firm and building your business in this particular practice area?
So the hardest part, I think, for most lawyers is finding time in the day, because first and foremost, we want to take care of the client, satisfy those deadlines and emergencies. And so we work really hard. And in order to build a business, you need to take time out of the business to work on the business and to think strategically and have a vision and to hire and to promote and market. And all these things are not, directly billable to the client. And when you're busy and you're good at your job, the whole day and the weekend can be filled with taking care of the client, and there's no time left. So the hardest thing, I think, is managing your time and managing the day and making time for essentially for yourself and for your own practice. And also, finding a way to delegate. Big part of, I think delegate's a good word. Just
It's a
because you
great
can do
word.
everything doesn't mean you should do everything.
Yeah, I think it's a great word. I tell people all the time, I can change the oil on my car. It doesn't mean that I should do it. And it definitely doesn't mean that I should like set up a business doing it, right? Like sometimes we spend so much time wanting to do everything because we're going to do it better. That's what we say a lot of times. But it doesn't really matter if you can do it better. The question is, how do you grow? How do you scale if you're doing everything? And so I think that that's a great word. I love the word delegate and really getting other people involved. Now, you're the attorney who closes deals. I'd love to hear a story. Like, what was your favorite deal that you ever closed?
Ah, you know, gosh, there's so many. I've closed thousands of deals, and everyone feels good. And most of them, it's interesting because it does seem like there's always something, right? In selling a business or buying a business. Uh, there's so it usually takes a few months worth of hard work of looking at every single agreement and looking at the employment pool, looking at the articles of incorporation and bylaws and all the corporate documents and just sniffing out things. And so they all require something to get there. But I did close a deal very recently, which was a nice, north of $20 million deal. And the buyer was an absolute professional buyer, which you don't always get a professional buyer. So this buyer was, and by professional, I mean, it was a multi-billion dollar publicly traded company that had bought other businesses. And rather than come in with your standard law firm, accounting firm, and two people at the company sort of coordinating between those two, they had a team on every single topic. So they would dive deep in on let's say inventory management, and we have a Zoom call with maybe 15 people on their side. Only one lawyer, one accountant, but then all their internal inventory people, that know how to ask all the questions about recognition and when do you hand count and, how do you handle the in and out? And well, does this balance sheet item reflect like something on the truck coming from the supplier or is it already in the warehouse? Just a level of detail that was very impressive. And it was like that on employee benefit plans, on revenue recognition. Just down the road, we had so many calls that were these giant calls with this terms of number of bodies, and then everybody was prepared and they asked really good questions. And so that one felt good to get done, get the client got paid. I think we have a closing dinner coming up next month, so it's just it was a feel gooder all the way around.
I mean, that sounds like a great deal. $20 million deal. You build something, get 20 million for it. That's not too bad. That's not too
Yeah, well, in
bad.
that case, it was all owned by one individual who started the business less than 20 years ago from nothing,
Wow.
and essentially took the revenues. The first year revenues were like minimal, low six
Yeah,
figures, and and then grew it up into a giant business and manufacturing company. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it was a good one.
So, what makes a business worth buying? Because I know in the legal industry, it's hard to sell a law firm. And I know people are trying to monetize their law firm, whether it's through the building their brand or having assets that are worth something, such as a website or maybe even some literature and so forth. But speaking outside of the legal industry, what makes a business worth buying? If a business, and this is something that I've always asked, if a business is making revenue and you can essentially continue to earn that income from this particular business for years to come, why would someone sell it, and then why would it be worth something to someone else losing the key owner?
Right. Great question. And the answer depends a lot on the type of the business. And sellers have different reasons to sell, but most often the seller is someone that's approaching retirement. They've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, and they don't have a family that children that want to run the business that get handed down to, or maybe they might have children, but the children aren't capable or aren't interested. So they want to sell it, right? And then from the buyer's point of view, the business it really depends. So if it's a manufacturing business, um, or if it's a large services business, the a lot of times you get the multiple on EBITDA, and this is more of a financial analysis of valuation. Other times you might have an out-of-state buyer that's buying that wants to break into a local market like California. So rather than try to do it, you know, on their own, they'll just buy someone that already has a workforce and a customer list. Um, Other businesses have good IP, and so they're getting bought. There might be a medical device company or biotech or something, and so they've got a patent library or trade secrets, something that the buyer is really more focused on that, and or maybe there's unique talent that they're interested in picking up. So that's actually a great first question to ask yourself as a potential seller is what is totally replaceable about my business and what is unique and special that's going to be a strategic benefit to the buyer. Because once you know that, then you kind of know what's driving your value. And you also, from a legal point of view, you know what to protect. So if you're an IP company, you better protect your IP and have really strong patents and
Yeah.
trademarks and things like that. Whereas if you're not, if you're more of if it's a customer list, a service, business, you might want to start thinking about questions of portability.
Mm.
And so a lot of at least smaller businesses, and I work with a lot of smaller businesses, the founder is integral to the clients and has a great relationship with the customer list. And that can be a little bit problematic because you want to be able to have sort of that first tier of lieutenants that also have a good relationship so that
Mhm.
you can have the ability to, for example, take a month off and the business runs fine without you.
Mhm.
That's a good way of knowing that a buyer has a chance of stepping in and having a seamless transition. Um, you know, and a lot of times the buyer will want to hire a founder like that for 1, 2, 3 years, and
Yeah,
in order to
I actually I ran into somebody one time who had a business and they sold the business but stayed as the vice president of a particular part of the business for like
yeah,
5 years,
yeah,
and just to make sure that everything went smoothly.
yeah.
And I could see that happening. But what I'm hearing you say is monetize all the assets of the business and make sure that as the owner, you're not the most integral part of the business, and that's going to give you the best chance of finding a buyer.
Yeah, that's good advice, whether you're selling or not, right?
Mhm.
Back to the word delegate, right? And
Yeah,
if that's,
yeah,
if that makes sense, because you do want a business that can more or less run itself. And I think you mentioned law firms. Selling a law firm has that problem because so many, clients of the law firm have a relationship with, the attorney
the
that's
owner.
helping them.
Yeah,
And so there's that fear of, well, if the attorney goes to another firm and they'll take the client, the clients will follow.
right.
Um, and so that's always a risk in any service business when you're buying it, but it does seem to be uniquely special with lawyers.
Yeah.
But whether, it still makes sense, I think, to buy service businesses. They work out, real well, often.
Mhm.
But there is a little more focus on retention. And so that idea of hiring the key employees, not only the owner, but the people that you really need to stick around, giving them some incentives. What I've seen lately, there's always been this issue of earnouts, which you might have heard about.
Mhm.
But related to earnout is a equity rollover. And especially on the bigger deals, that's becoming more prevalent where and in case that someone doesn't know what an earnout is, that is a way to bridge the gap on purchase price.
Mhm.
And so let's say the deal is for $10 million as an example. Um, but the buyer's not sure it's worth 10. They're
Mhm.
comfortable at 8 million, but the seller is not selling for less than 10. So how do you close that $2 million gap? And so an earnout would say, well, we'll see how this business does in the 1 or 2 years or 3 years after the sale. And if you hit certain revenue and profit targets or other kind of performance metrics, then the buyer will kick in the extra money. And so that's
Mm.
how you get an earnout. It's a contingent purchase price paid on a deferred basis based on the business doing it sort of as projected or at least not
Mhm.
worse, not too bad.
Mhm.
Um, that's similar to, but different from a deferred purchase price where you can have like seller financing and you're just going to pay a couple of years later. And then there's this equity rollover idea, which I've seen pretty, work out pretty good many times when the buyer is some strategic buyer that's private equity owned. And the buyer has a plan. They say, look, we're buying you, but we're also buying five other companies like you. We're
I
putting them
see.
all together. We're going to put our economies of scale and our, amazing executive team to supplement your team, and we're going to grow. And then we're going to sell the whole thing, in
Right.
5 years
Right.
for billions of dollars. And as part of that, we'll let you roll over. So in my example, the $10 million example, there could be a $2 million equity rollover where you get paid the 8 million at close and the 2 million gets turned into equity of the parent company. And
And then when it sells, you get the extra.
then you get a second bite at the apple on the bigger price. So you
Oh,
can end
that's
up making a
nice.
lot more than 10. Right. And it gives you an incentive to help the buyer succeed and grow. Obviously you'll be an expert on what you sold them, and but now you're part of the bigger thing.
Yeah, I like that idea actually because I've thought before that it would be cool if like one of the big by the way I'm not selling my consulting business, but if like a big consulting business came in and said, hey, we'd love to make you part of our thing, work with us for a little bit and you get a piece of the big pie. Like I've always thought that. I didn't realize that there was an actual mechanism for making that a reality. So that's kind of cool that there's like a legal way to do that.
Sure.
Um, Tell me about opportunity because I'm pretty young, and but I do think about how am I going to expand? And the question is, do you expand by brute force and marketing and expansion, or do you buy a business? And that's something that I'm always thinking about. I go online and I research like consulting firms that may be selling, and how do I expand? So, but how do you find the opportunity? Like how do I know that I have a good opportunity? And also go ahead and touch on a question that we had in the pre-show, which was about baby boomers. Because I heard recently that you need to go out, you need to start befriending baby boomers and have them sell you their business. So talk to me about that strategy and how you actually find this deal if you're wanting to buy.
Sure. Happy to do that. What I see most often in terms of the companies that are getting bought is they're getting bought by someone that they know, someone in the business, in the industry. It's a competitor. They may already be selling or buying, with them as part of their business. And so there's a relationship, and a lot of times it goes back for years. And that's a way for there to be a higher level of trust, right? You've already got some experience with them and they with you, and so friends, that kind of thing, in the business. And so that's a great way to find a company to buy, or to get bought. Because a big part of either one of those is what happens right after the closing, because you want it to be a successful integration of the two businesses, the cultures, those types of things. So setting that aside as, what else can you do, to find something to buy? Typically, you can go on some websites. So I know that there's been a lot of small businesses getting listed on Biz Buy Sell is an example. You can hire buy side business brokers, or even investment bankers. Both
Mhm.
of those do similar functions. They have different licensing requirements. The business brokers tend to be in the under $10 million range, more or less, and the investment bankers are in the over $10 million range. And so, but both of them tend to take on, both a combination of a fee, a monthly fee, do the look, and
Mhm.
a commission on close, if they find something that you go ahead and buy. So those
What's
are
the typical commission on something like that? Does it vary or is it
It
like
does. So, when you're at the bigger numbers,
Mhm.
the north of 10 million, so you get the 20, you might see something that's around 5%. And it might even
Okay.
be like a scale. So they might
Mhm.
say, it might start at 7 and it might go down to 3 as you hit different like price points.
Mhm.
Um, and then at the below 10 million range, you see higher percentages, um, as much as 10%.
Okay.
And for both of them, there's usually going to be some kind of cost, like a monthly cost, just or an onboarding cost. And that might be anywhere from 5 to 20,000 a month. Or as an onboard fee to put together like the whole pitch deck and presentation materials. The fees, makes a big difference if you're talking about like I said, a small business or a big business, and the costs involved.
When you say 20,000 a month, that's for how many months? Just during the time of the
Well, that would
sale?
be for like a big engagement, something in the 30, 40, $50 million range. Yeah.
I
And
see.
and it would just be ongoing until you decide and you're done, you're done with that.
So
Right.
so are baby boomers the right place to go find friends? Because you said it's usually sold to somebody they know for 4 or 5 years. So is that the place to go? Like, are they selling their businesses? What's happening?
They are. And so a friend of mine, Bertram Michelle at MCAP Advisors, put together a nice slide deck. He's an
Okay.
investment banker.
All
And
right.
it's sort of it's the idea is the potential for baby boomer retirement to drive M&A activity. And so the analysis he did is he said, all right, if people retire around, I think it's age 65 is the goal,
Mm-hmm.
um, then you say, well, when were they born? And, so this year's retirees is at one of the, as far as people, the baby boomer bulge, we're right in the middle of the height of that
Mm-hmm.
in what is it, it started in 1947 and kind of goes until like the early 60s, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so the so this year, the last 2 years actually, and the next 3 years is at the height of when the baby boomer generation is looking to retire. So that
Okay.
is perceived as a lot of built up, demand to sell. People want to sell when they retire. So I guess the context here is, and I understand your question is where do we go to find them? And I guess the quick answer is, well, they're everywhere, right? Because they're in every industry and
Right.
every,
Right.
it's like, well, but the fact is that, you're right. There's a lot of people that want to retire around now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that should be pushing the number of deals higher, but
Okay.
we have seen 2021 was just a giant year in terms of deal flow. 22 was less and 23 was less. And so the
Mm-hmm.
question is, well, which way is 24 going to go in terms of number of companies available to buy and actually getting, bought? And so we have high interest rates, which depresses the ability to buy businesses. It certainly affects private equity, who always does equity plus debt. And so
Mm-hmm.
if your debt is expensive, then you can't, it doesn't, you can't afford to pay as much for a business.
Right.
Um, so we are predicting this will be another like an increasing year as far as number of deals because
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing signs that interest rates will go down. But we also see some sign that people have been, waiting to
Mm-hmm.
sell. And there certainly seems to be capital in the wings. Yeah. So
So,
so
I
we'll
mean,
see.
it's a
We'll
good
see.
time then. It's a
I
good
think it's a
time.
good time.
Yeah, it's a good time all around if you're prepared. So give me the three things a person wants to buy. This is of great interest to me personally because I am uh, uh I have considered, I'm not in the market actively, but I have considered buying a business to accelerate the growth of my current business. What would be the three things you would tell me that I need to have in order to make this successful? What would those three things be?
Well, for a consulting business, the first thing I would want to understand is that sounds like a people business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I suppose the first question you're asking is, am I buying the business? Does it have name brand value? Or am I just hiring the people?
I
And
see.
and so maybe, because you can always just hire people rather than
Mm-hmm.
buy the business. That's a way to do it. Assuming someone's willing to come work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to come in and try to basically buy the whole business, then the first thing, of course, is to understand what everyone's goal is. Is anybody planning on going home and, retiring, or did they want to come work for you? What's in it
Right.
for them? So great idea all the time. What's in it for them? Ask yourself
Mm-hmm.
that. Of course, you need to see their financial statements. You need to see their actual collections, their billing. Do they have any kind of collection problem? look at their clients, look at their top 10, top 20 clients. How solid are they? How are they going to stay? Because if you buy them, assuming a certain revenue and then they lose their number one client, the
Right.
price goes down. Um, yeah, so I would say those are the two number one things. And then kind of there's this um feeling that you get. You do need to follow
Mm.
your instincts. Like, do you like these people? Do you like this
Right.
business? Is it a good fit for your business? Is it a good complement? How is it going to actually work? Are they in a different state? Are they down the street? Um, are they going to integrate well? Do you have sort of any policies and procedures that are going to rub people the wrong way? Or do you need to come up with some that are going to make things go
Right.
smoother so you can keep tabs on things?
Right. Right.
What about rates? Are you going to make them raise their rates and lose their clients? So as you can see, a lot of it is very practical advice. And
Mm.
that's a big part of my job as a lawyer, is helping clients walk through the checklist
Mhm.
of like business reality, business practical questions. Yeah. And then I guess you can get into some of the brass tacks about office leases and, you know,
Right.
employment contracts. And does anybody have, windfall rights to get paid something? That's part of the diligence.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned that this is just practical things, but when you're in the moment, you don't even think about the practical things. Like you need someone who guides you through that process because you could miss something that's common sense because you're not experienced enough to be, in that environment. And so I do believe, getting somebody like yourself who has done a lot of deals, who understands the market is actually the best way to do that. So
It, it
we've been
is, it is,
listening. Oh, go
yeah, it
ahead.
is very helpful, I think, because my team and I, we do come in a very organized way, right? We have our list, our checklist, and we say,
Yes.
okay, let's go through it. Who are the owners? Can we prove it? What's the chain of title? Okay, what legal contracts have you signed? Give us copies of everything. Okay,
Yeah.
how's your payroll? Did you do it right? Do you have any employment problems? Are you paying people as contractors that should be employees? We just kind of go through
That happens
the
a lot.
list all the way down. Right, of course. Always find problems. But then you say, okay, well, how are we going to fix that? And
Right.
is there 5 years of doing something wrong and there might be a risk that, someone has to pay a tax or do something, so then we say, all right, let's just put it on paper. If that risk happens, who's paying for it? And,
Awesome.
and you
Awesome.
get through it. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Well, we've been listening to Addison Adams, who is the lawyer who closes deals from California. And one last question. What does it take to be a successful business owner, entrepreneur? You've seen so many deals, you've seen people buy and sell. You yourself are an entrepreneur. What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur?
Gosh, that is a great question. And I feel like there's a long answer and probably 1,000 books on answering that question. From what I've seen, though, it's a calm demeanor,
Mhm.
a well-reasoned approach, and a trust in your advisors. And
Mhm.
so, hiring the right accountant, the right attorney, the right vice president. I mean, you just have to, to build anything big, you can't do it on your own, and you do need to bring in the right person for the job. And there's a lot of jobs that need to get done. So, and then of course there is no way around, hard work comes in handy and just being willing to do it, right?
Yeah, the other day I posted something. I said the secret to success, and then I put hard work, and I think that that's absolutely true. If there's a listener out there who's interested in buying or selling or getting more information about the process of a deal that they may be working on, how can they get in touch with you?
So I have started a firm. It's called Adams Corporate Law. That's our website, adamscorporatelaw.com. We're a team of lawyers that are focused on one thing, which is closing deals. We write contracts. You can send me an email, addison@adamscorporatelaw.com. You can also look me up on LinkedIn. at Addison Adams. And you'll know you found the right one if it says the lawyer that closes deals.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. And so if you have a question about closing a deal, buying, selling, Adams Corporate Law, you can get in touch with them by going to their website. Addison, thank you for being on the show. You've been listening to the Guts and Glory Show.
You've been listening to the Guts and Glory Show. For more and to learn more about Luis, hit the website at luisscottjr.com. For consulting opportunities, hit 8figurefirm.com. That's the number 8figurefirm.com. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time on the Guts and Glory Show.